All right, guys, what is up? Algebra 1 students, we are preparing for the Unit 7 test. All right. So we have the Unit 7 test coming up. It is important that you spend some time on your test note card that you're provided from your teacher with. Okay, so make sure that you get that note card. All my students got one of these. Make sure they talk to your Algebra 1 teacher. You should be getting one of these as well. Okay. So if you haven't yet, make sure you work on that after this review. So question number 1, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It says to solve each equation by rewriting it in factored form. So we have to factor, okay, using the zero product property. So some of you guys in my class, you learn a different method than Miss Wolford or Miss B's class, or Miss Wyatt, right? So there's different variations. I'm going to explain it as though you are one of my students. This is how I teach it. So let's go ahead and dive in. So it looks like we have three terms, okay? It's set equal to 0, so we're ready to factor. So some of our methods, we have GCF. GCF is greatest common factor. There is not a number that goes into all three of these terms. That's not one. Okay, so GCF won't work. So I've taught my students the X method, which if you learned it a different way, just means you need to figure out two numbers that multiply to give you this, but add to give you this, right? So I taught my students, it's called the X method. You draw an X. This number goes on top, means multiplication. This number goes on the bottom, it means addition. And we have to list all the factors of the number on the top. So all the numbers that multiply to give me 11. We got 1 and 11. That's it. Now, out of all those factors, which two numbers add to 12? Well, 1 and 11, right? So we're going to write plus 1, plus 11. Now we have to solve. So this is where I call it split and solve. You split the two parentheses apart, you set them both equal to 0, and then you solve both of them. Okay, so we set them equal to 0, and we solve. So it says plus 11, I subtract 11, I get negative 11 for one answer. Over here it says plus 1, so I minus 1, and I'm going to get negative 1 as my other answer. Okay. We're going to try another problem, number 2. Same kind of method here, right? There are three terms. There's no number here, so you can do the X method again. So X, parenthesis, X, parenthesis equals 0. Finding the two numbers that are going to multiply to give me the top, but add to give me the bottom. Okay, so first I'm going to start with the factors of 6. Factors of 6 are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. Now, here's the tricky part. They have to multiply to a positive, right? But they're adding to a negative. The only two ways of getting a positive from multiplication is if they're both positive or if they're both negative, right? Negative times negative is a positive. So out of all these now, which two add to negative 7? Should be able to see it. Negative 1 and negative 6. So negative 1 and negative 6 go right here. Again, split and solve. So x minus 1 equals 0, x minus 6 equals 0, and now we solve. So plus 6, we got x equals 6. And then minus 1, so we add 1 to both sides. So x equals f. Those are our two answers. Okay, same thing for number 3, because again, three terms, this is a 1 out in front, and it's equal to 0, so X method again. We're going to go ahead, put the negative 50 on top, the 23 on the bottom. Remember, the bottom is addition, the top is multiplication. First step, listing all the factors of this top number, okay? So this top number is 50, negative 50, but I'm going to first list the factors out of 50. So I got 1 and 50. I got 2 and 25. Okay, if I'm stuck, I don't know what to do. This happens a lot. To get these factors, you take 50 and you're just dividing it by these small numbers. So 50 divided by 1 is 50. 50 divided by 2 is 25. Is 3 go into 50? It doesn't. Okay, there's decimal there. So then I'm going to do 50 divided by 4, see if that works. It doesn't. 50 divided by 5, that should work, right? We got 5 and 10. Okay, then I'm going to do 50 divided by 6. Does that work? Doesn't. 50 divided by 7. Nope. 50 divided by 8. Nope. 50 divided by 9 should not work. And 50 divided by 10, we already know it works, so we've listed all the factors. Okay, once it repeats, you got them all. Now, twist, it has to be negative. So we need to look at our numbers and figure out, is there a way of getting 23 with our numbers? With 1 and 50, right? If you subtract 1, you add 1, it's never going to hit 23, so that's out. 2 and 25 could get us positive 23 somehow, some way. Question is, where does the negative go, right? Because a negative times a positive is a negative. So, is the negative going to go on the 2? Well, let's find out. Is negative 2 plus 25 23? It is. So, negative 2 and 25 are our answers. So, I'd do x minus 2, x plus 25 equals 0. Okay, then I'm going to actually split and again solve. So, split x minus 2 equals 0. Add 2 to both sides. X equals 2. X plus 25 equals 0. Subtract 25 from both sides. X equals negative 25. Okay. All right, now let's look at number 4. Number 4 looks like all the problems we just did except one thing. Hopefully you're able to spot it. It's not set equal to 0. At the very top, it says must be set equal to 0 before you start. So with that being said, this has to be 0. So we got to think about how to get rid of 15. Subtract 15. Okay, now I'm writing it under the 2x, but are those like terms? Can I combine them? The answer is no, okay? If one has an x and one doesn't, you can't combine them. So you just write them side by side, okay? That equals 0. Sweet. Set equal to 0. Now I have to do what method? Well, looks like there's 3 terms. First term, right? There's nothing in front of it, so calls for the x method. So 2 numbers that multiply to give me negative 15, right? And 2 that add to negative 2. So let's find the factors of 15 first. We got 1 and 15, 3 and 5. There's no possibility of getting 2 between 1 and 15, so that's out. Now, it's a negative 15, so we have to figure out where does the negative go. Let's try it. If I put the negative on the 3, negative 3 plus 5 is positive 2, not negative 2. So let's move it to the 5. 3 minus 5, that's negative 2. So it's going to be positive 3 minus 5, split, equal to 0, and solve. Okay, so it says plus 3, so I subtract 3. We got negative 3. This says minus 5, so I plus 5. Got x equals 5. All right, now let's move on to number 5. Number 5 is a tricky problem, all right? This one doesn't have 3 terms, right? It has 2. Remember, terms are separated via a subtraction or addition sign. So this is your first term right here, all of that, and this is your second term, this is 36, okay? So this one, a lot of students might try the GCF, and you can try it, right? You can see if it works, but there's a hidden name for this one. This one is called the difference of squares. Okay, so difference of squares means difference. Difference in math means subtraction. Is there a subtraction sign right here? Yes. Squares, ask yourself, can you take the square root of both of these numbers? The answer is also yes. So to do this, we are setting up our 2 sets of parentheses. Okay, we need to figure out what to put in the first set, so that way if we multiply them, they give us 100x squared. Well, we know an x and x have to go there, right? But now comes the part where you ask yourself, what's the square root of 100? It's 10. So you're going to put 10x and 10x here. Then ask yourself, okay, somehow I need 2 numbers that multiply to give me a negative. Well, off the bat, one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative, right? That's the only way to multiply to get a negative. Second part is, okay, what is the number, though? We'll take the square root of 36. 6. So plus 6 and minus 6. Okay, now these are the same thing. So the only difference is the subtraction and addition, right? So we're going to split and solve. So I'm going to do the right side. So we got 10x minus 6 equals 0, right? And this one's 10x plus 6 equals 0. Solving this side. First, if you're not sure what to do, cover up the variable. Cover this up. It says minus 6. I'm going to add 6. Okay, that goes away. Now I got 10x equals 6. Okay, so now how do I get rid of the 10? You divide, right? So we divide both sides by 10. You can leave it like a fraction or type in your calculator and you get 0.6. Now, notice something. These are the same thing, right? The only difference is our first step would actually be subtraction of 6. So ultimately, you're going to get the same answer, but it's going to be negative, right? It's the same steps, only this is a negative 6. So the answer over here is just going to be negative 0.6. All right, let's go ahead and look at number 6 now. Number 6, okay. Is this the difference of squares? Hopefully you're immediately like, nope, because there's no subtraction. So definitely not that, right? Are there 3 terms? Nope. There's only 2. 1, 2, okay. So what is our option here? GCF is our option, okay? This is where we're going to draw a line, okay? That's our GCF line. We're going to have a set of parentheses, and it's still equal to 0. So we have the terms 3x squared plus 15x. What number goes into 3 and 15? 3, right? You can take a 3 out of a 3 and you can take a 15, you can take a 3 out of 15. Now, notice they both have an x. So I'm going to put x on the line. And now the question I've helped my students phrase is 3x times what, right? If you redistributed it back, 3x times what gives me 3x squared? They're able to piece together that's an x, right? 3x times what is 15x? Well, 5, right? So if you redistributed it back, you should be able to get the top. And now it's just like all the other problems, only if you notice, this doesn't have another set of parentheses, right? The same step applies. You still have to split and set them both equal to 0. So you set them both equal to 0, and now you solve them both. So this one, we subtract 5. We get x equals negative 5. This one says 3 times x. So we do division of 3 to get rid of the 3. So 0 divided by 3 is 0. Okay, so those are the answers to the front page. Okay, let's try the second page. All right. Now, this one, again, we read the directions because the directions help save us a lot of work sometimes. It says, solve each equation using square roots. If irrational, leave an exact form. So irrational can be a tricky word to understand, but all it means is a run-on decimal, okay? So for example, the square root of 13, for example, okay? If you type that in your calculator, I'll show you. You type it in, okay? So square root 13, you get this. Tons of decimals, right? So it's irrational. We don't want that, okay? So if it's irrational, you leave it the way it is. You leave it just like this, okay? All right, let's look at this first problem. Solving for x. So first step, cover up the variable. How do you get rid of a minus 1? You add 1. All right, so we got x squared equals 3 plus 1. That's 4. Okay, how do you get rid of the little 2? It says it in the name. Right? If this is a power of 2, you have to square root it to eliminate it. Make it explode. Do something fancy, okay? Bring down the x. Then do the other side. Square root. What is the square root of 4? Don't just say 2. 2 is incorrect. You have to say plus or minus 2. That is the correct answer. Okay? And that's because 2 times 2 is 4, but negative 2 times negative 2 is also 4. Okay? So you cannot forget that. Please remember that for your test. All right. Number 8. Again, same steps. Cover up the variable. There it is, covering all that up. It says minus 7. So we're going to add 7 to both sides. All right, we got 7x squared equals 77. How do you get rid of that 7 attached to the x? You divide, okay? You don't square root anything until that x is completely by itself. So we divide both sides by 7. 77 divided by 7 is 11. Okay, and now do you see how the x squared is isolated? It is by itself. Now is the time to get rid of that little 2. So now you come in and you square root to explode that piece. Square root the other side as well. So we got x equals, don't forget the plus or minus. And can you take the square root of 11? No, you can't. So you leave it the way it is. This is our final answer right there, okay? Exact form. All right, let's try number 9 now. Number 9, again, the same method I've used for all these problems is covering up the variable. So covering up the variable with my finger, awesome. It says plus 4. Get rid of that plus 4 by subtracting 4. Now that goes away. I have x squared divided by 2 equals 10. So my question is, how do I get rid of the division of 2? Well, what's the opposite of division? Multiplication. So we're going to do the inverse function. We're going to do the opposite, right? So we're going to multiply by 2. What does that cause? It causes the 2's to cancel out, become 1, and the x squared comes down. 10 times 2 is 20. Now, x squared is isolated. How do you get rid of it? You square root both sides. Explode, boom. Square root this side. You got x equals, is the square root of 20 a nice number? It's not. Okay, so we have the square root of 20, but we don't just leave it like that. We put plus or minus in front. All right. Now we're going to move on to what we call grouping, okay? Grouping is a lot of steps. So if you're not good at memorizing steps, that's why you have a note card. I would write out the steps on a note card, right? You have examples. We're going to do one of them, and do both of them, okay? And I would write them on your note card if you need it. So it says solve by grouping using the zero product property, okay? So the zero product property, we first make it set equal to 0. It is, okay? And then at the end, we set them equal to 0 to solve. So first step of grouping, multiply the first and the last terms together. So we're going to do 3 times 6, okay? 3 times 6 is 18. Now, second step, find the factors of 18. So we got 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. Out of all those numbers, your job is to find the 2 that add to 11. Hopefully you found them. Okay? Now we're going to split the 11x apart. So that way we can have a total of 4 terms. That allows us to group, right? 2 pairs. So to figure out what number goes first, it doesn't matter. You can split this to have the 2 first and then the 9, or the 9 and the 2. Advice I give is look at the first number and ask yourself, does that 3 go into 2? It doesn't. Does 3 go into 9? It does. So I would write down the number it can go into first. So the 9 is going to work. So I'm going to do 9x plus 2x. Why am I attaching x's? Where did those come from? Well, if I covered this up, we should be able to recognize that 9x plus 2x is 11x, right? If I don't put the x's, then that just adds to 11, and that's wrong. So we have to add the x's. Then we're going to bring down the other pieces. So plus 6 and 3x squared plus 9x. And now comes grouping. You group 2 together. So parentheses, the first 2, parentheses, the second 2. Okay? We grouped it, and now we do the GCF. So this is like the front page, right? Where I drew a line and then I did parentheses. You're going to do that, but for both sets. So for the first set, I'm going to draw a line, parentheses. That's for this piece. And then for this piece, drawing a line, parentheses. Okay, so this is the GCF part. All right, so what is the GCF here? Well, it looks like 3 goes into 3 and 3 goes into 9. and they both have x's. So I'm going to pull 3x out. Now, 3x times what is 3x squared? X. 3x times what is 9x? 3. Okay, over here, we got 2x and 6. We ask ourselves, does 2 go into 6? It does, okay? So we write plus 2. 2 times what is 2x? X. And 2 times what is 6? 3. Now, before you move on, if these don't match, you can't move on. You can't do it. Okay, so you always want to make sure when you are doing grouping that these match. If they don't match, you did something incorrect. Okay, something was not factored correctly. So double check your work. Make sure that if you were to redistribute it back, you get the numbers up here. If you can't, then something went wrong, right? All right, now that they match, you write it one singular time. And then you have another set, but you ask yourself, where do those numbers come from? They come from the ones you pulled out. You group them together, okay? So 3x plus 2 is what we put on the inside of those parentheses. And now just come split and solve. Split, set them equal to 0, and solve. Okay, the left side, we just subtract 3, right? Get rid of that. So we got x equals 0 minus 3, which is negative 3. The right side, cover up the variable, get rid of the plus 2 by subtracting 2. We got 3x equals negative 2. And then how do you get rid of this 3? You divide. Okay, so we got x equals negative 2 divided by 3, which is negative 0.6666 on repeat, right? This little bar just means repeat it. All right, let's go ahead and try 11. Okay, 11, same steps, okay? So we're going to first start with multiplying the first and the last together. So 5 times 3. That's 15. List out the factors. 1 and 15, 3 and 5. Which two add to 16? Those two, right? So again, pause and ask yourself which one you want to write first based off this first number. Is 5 going to go into 1? No. Is 5 going to go into 15? Yes. So I'm going to put the 15x first plus 1x. I'm going to bring the other terms down for the ride. And then I'm going to group. So throw in my first set of parentheses and my second set of parentheses. And then I'm going to factor out the GCF. So align parentheses equals 0. Those lines are my GCFs. So covering this up, GCF between 5x squared and 15x. We should be able to recognize a 5 goes into 5, a 5 goes into 15, so 5 goes on the line. They also have an x, so I'm going to pull that out. 5x times what is 5x squared? X. 5x times what is 15x? 3. Over here, the GCF, sometimes it's a small number. 1x and 3, what's the only thing they have in common? A 1. 1 can go into 1, 1 can go in 3. Sometimes that's all it is. So plus 1. When you factor out of a 1, it's the easiest way of factoring because 1 times anything gives you these things. So 1 times x is 1x, and 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, make sure these match. Okay, if they match, you write it down once. Pause and think for a second. What goes in the second set of parentheses? Hopefully you got it. It's the GCFs. You group them together. 5x plus 1. Okay, now you split and solve. So split, set equal to 0, set equal to 0, and you solve both sides. The left side, you're right, we just subtract 3 from both sides. So we got x equals negative 3. That's one answer. Over here, we got a few more steps. Cover up the 5x, subtract 1 from both sides. Okay, so we got 5x equals a negative 1. And then to get rid of the 5, we divide both sides by 5. So x equals -1/5, or again, you can grab your calculator and you can type in -1 divided by 5 and get -0.2. Okay, so -0.2 is also correct answer. All right, let's move on to the next problem. All right, so now is solve each equation by first finding the discriminant and determining the number of solutions, then using the quadratic to find the solutions. Something that you need to know to do this page is what leads to answers and what doesn't. So if your discriminant, off to the side here, if your discriminant is less than 0, you will have no solutions. If your discriminant is equal to 0, you will have one solution. If your discriminant is greater than 0, you will have two solutions. Okay, so after you're done solving this and you get D is less than 0, you have no answers. If you get D equals 0, you got one answer. And if you have D is greater than 0, you have two answers. Excuse me. Okay, graphically, you should know what those look like. So I'm going to show you real quick. No solutions means it will not ever touch the x-axis. So you see the x-axis is here. This is no solution. Never touching. No answers. No solutions. Okay, one solution looks like this. Touched one time right there. That's one solution. One x-intercept. Okay, and two solutions look something like this, right? It touches twice on the x-axis. We don't care about the y-axis for this, okay? It's only strictly the x-axis. This is two solutions, one solution, no solution. Okay, make sure you know that. All right, let's go ahead and try our first problem. First step has to be set equal to 0. Check. Second step, identify A, B, and C. Now, if you have no clue what A, B, and C are, you might want to write down the standard form for a quadratic. It looks like this. A, B, and C will never have variables. Okay, they are just the numbers attached to the variables. So A is the number attached to x squared. In this case, an invisible 1. B is the number attached to x. In this case, 9. And C is the number by itself. In this case, 20. Okay, now I'm going to use the discriminant formula. Okay, I'm just going to do a lowercase d instead. So we got d equals b squared. Okay, as soon as I see something being squared, I immediately put parentheses down, and you should too. The b value is this number here. So we're going to plug in a 9. Minus, I'm going to do all of this part in parentheses. So 4 times, what is A? 1. What is C? 20. You can by all means grab a calculator and type all this in exactly the way you see it, knowing this is a subtraction sign, not a negative key, okay? Or you can split it apart. I know that 9 squared is 81, and I know that 4 times 1 is 4, times 20 is 80. So 81 minus 80 is 1. So what does that mean? Well, is the value less than 0? No. Is the value equal to 0? No. Is 1 greater than 0? Yes. So there's two solutions to this problem. Okay, so that means we have to now use the quadratic formula. If you didn't know this, I'm going to show you this now. The discriminant is all of this. So easier way of doing this is doing negative b plus or minus the square root of the discriminant all over 2a, which you already just found. So let's go ahead and use this. It says negative b. So negative b just means the opposite of b. So right now, b is 9. The opposite is negative 9. Then it says plus or minus. Don't write plus or minus. The square root of d. D we said is 1. I'm going to plug in a 1. All this is divided by 2 times A. 2 times A. So A is 1. I'm going to plug in a 1. Now I'm going to simplify. So negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 1. Okay, the square root of 1 is 1. So we're going to put a 1. All divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. Now, when you get to this moment, that plus or minus sign is indicating that you need to write 2 equations. You have to split it apart. One of them is going to be negative 9 plus 1, all divided by 2. And the other is going to be negative 9 minus 1, all over 2. The negative 9 will not change. The 1 will. Okay, because the plus or minus is on the 1. Now, if you are going to simplify this, you need to do the top first. So negative 9 plus 1 is negative 8. And now do negative 8 divided by 2. You get negative 4. Make sure you write it as x equals negative 4. Keep going on this side. Negative 9 minus 1 is negative 10. And negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. If you type it in all at once on your calculator, you'll get the wrong answer. If you want to type it in, you have to use parentheses around the top first, then divide by 2. You'll get the right answer. If you just type this in, you're going to get the wrong answer every time till you listen to your teacher who says use parentheses when you type it in the calculator if you want to, right? Otherwise, do the top first and then the bottom. All right, let's try number 11 now. Okay, number 11, same concept, our A, B, C. So A, in this case, number out in front is a 1. B is negative 10. Be careful of that. And C is 21. Okay, the negative 10 is there. You have to make sure you put it. All right, discriminant. Following this equation right here up at the top, we got D equals parentheses, something being squared. B is being squared. So we're going to plug in a negative 10. If you don't use parentheses, your teacher will yell at you because you're getting the wrong answer every single time you do this. Till you learn to use the parentheses. Stop being lazy and just write the parentheses down. I promise you, you'll get all the right answers if you do this, okay? If you keep using no parentheses, you are going to be typing this and you will be getting the wrong answer. This is the wrong answer. This is not correct. What we want to do is negative 10 times negative 10, which means it will be positive, okay? So please use parentheses. All right, now we have minus 4 times A times C. So A is 1 times C, which is 21. Okay, now I'm going to break it apart. We got D equals negative 10 squared, I know is 100. Minus, if I don't know it, I grab it, right? 4 times 1 times 21, we get 84. So then, hand in your calculator, we type in 100 minus 84, and boom, we got 16. So D equals 16. Ask yourselves now, is that less than 0, equal to 0, greater than 0? Hopefully we see it's greater than 0, so 2 solutions here. Now we do the quadratic formula. So x equals, I'm following this, negative b. So again, opposite of b. B right now is a negative, so it's going to be positive. Plus or minus the square root of d. In this case, the square root of d is 16. This is d. All divided by 2 times a, which is 1. Okay, now I'm going to keep going. We got 10 plus or minus. Please don't just put 16 here. Okay, the question is, what is the square root of 16? The square root of 16 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, and then 2 times 1 is 2. Now that we have this, we break it apart, right? 2 equations. You got one that says 10 plus 4 divided by 2, and you have one that says 10 minus 4 divided by 2. Do the top first. We got 10 plus 4, that's 14 divided by 2, 7. 10 minus 4, you got 6 divided by 2, that's 3. And all done. Okay, let's go ahead and try number 12. Okay, number 12. A this time, it's 3. Set equal to 0, by the way. Okay, and it's in standard form. So x squared A term is 3. B is -5, and C is 1. So let's find the discriminant. So D equals B squared. So -5 squared minus 4 times A, which is 3, times C, which is 1. Okay, so I'm going to D equals 25 minus, I know 4 times 3 is 12, times 1 is just 12, and 25 minus 12 is 13. So again, 2 solutions. All right, now let's keep going. We got x equals opposite of b. That's what this says. When it says -b, it just says opposite of b. So b right now is -5. Opposite of b is 5. Plus or minus square root of d. What is d? 13. All over 2 times. What is a? 3. Okay, now let's keep simplifying this. We got x equals 5 plus or minus. Do we know what the square root of 13 is? Let's see. Square root of 13. Yikes. Decimal. We don't like that. So again, it says keep it in exact form. So we're going to keep it the way we see it. And what is 2 times 3? 6. So this is our final answer. You can't go further. We want it in exact form. This is exact form. We're good. All right, now let's try completing the square. So problems that require completing the square, there's one thing super important you have to remember, and that's b divided by 2 squared. You have to have that on your note card. Please do, okay? So with completing the square, your first thing is you actually don't want this one set equal to 0. Okay, the setup for completing the square is you need ax squared plus bx equal to c. Okay, you need c on the right side. So looking at this first problem, I have my ax squared, my bx, and the c term is unfortunately here. I need to move it. So I'm going to add 21 to move it over. So I got x squared plus 16x equals -4 plus 21, which is 17. Step 2 of completing the square is you need to insert blanks because you're going to add something to both sides. So we're going to do x squared plus 16x blank equals 17 blank because you're going to do it to both sides. And that's where this guy comes in, okay? This guy right here, that number that we get, it's going to go here and here. So let's try it out. We got b divided by 2. B in this case is my 16. So 16 divided by 2 squared. I show all my work because the number you get right here will be used again. 16 divided by 2 is 8, and 8 squared is 64. So I'm adding 64 to both sides. Okay, the next step is to factor. So just like factoring this, right? So we have x parentheses squared equals something. That's the start. Okay, so what number goes here? Well, that's what I was telling you guys. If you show your work, it's simple. It's this number right there. That's going to go right here every single time. So plus 8. How do you check it? Well, 8 times 8 is 64, and 8 plus 8 is 16. You got it. Okay, then grab a calculator if you're not sure. You type in 17 plus 64, and voila, we get 81. And now the next step of completing the square is to square root. I'm purposely like enunciating that to help you remember, okay? So to get rid of the little 2, use square root. Again, explodes. Boom, gone. Everything else comes down. So x plus 8 equals, you have to do it to this side. And then ask yourself, don't just write 81. That's wrong. What is the square root of 81? Square root of 81 is plus or minus 9. Students will forget that. Please remember it, okay? If you physically write that square root symbol, you will physically write the plus or minus. All right, now, just like we did in the quadratic formula, right, we wrote 2 equations. You have to write 2 equations here. 1 that's going to say x plus 8 equals positive 9, and 1 that says x plus 8 equals negative 9. And you just solve them. So cover up the variable, get rid of 8. 9 minus 8 is 1. Get rid of the 8. Negative 9 minus 8 is negative 17. All right, let's try it again. Number 14. Again, completing the square, first step, it has to look like this. It doesn't, right? Ax squared plus bx, my c term's here, we need to move it. So I'm going to move it over first. I don't know if you guys could hear that, but someone just like fell. Okay, it's really loud, I'm sorry. All right, so we got x squared plus 24x equals 145. Next step, put some blanks. So we got x squared plus 24x blank equals 145 blank. How to get those blanks? The formula. Okay, this guy right here. So off to the side, I'm going to do some scratch work, okay? My b value is 24 divided by 2, and I'm squaring it. Don't do it all in one step. Okay, this number is going to come back, so you might as well show off your work. 24 divided by 2 is 12, and 12 squared is 144. So I'm going to add 144 to both sides. Then I'm going to factor. X, some number, squared equals these two added together, which is 289. What number goes here? You guessed it. You already wrote it down. It's that 12. How do you know? Well, 12 times 12 is 144. 12 plus 12 is 24. Next step, get rid of the 2 by square rooting. Yes, okay, get rid of it. You got x plus 12 equals the square root of this. Okay, if we don't know it, we take our calculator. The square root of 289 is 17. But it's not just 17. Because whenever you do the plus or minus symbol, right, it's because you square rooted something. So it's plus or minus 17. And now we have two answers yet again. We got x plus 12 equals positive 17. And we got x plus 12 equals negative 17. And we have to solve them. So get rid of the 12. Minus 12, minus 12. Okay, 17 minus 12 is 5. All right, and then minus 12, minus 12. Negative 17 minus 12 is negative 29. And that's how you complete the square. Okay. Now we just have one piece left, and that is the backside to fill in some blanks. Okay. So it says fill in the following using the word bank. Not all options may be used. So we could not use some of these. Let's start with the first one. It says when the discriminant is positive. So AKA when D is greater than 0, right? Those are positive numbers. There are or is blank for the quadratic equation. How many solutions are there if it's positive? You wrote it down. Relook at it. If it's positive, there's 2. So you'd write 2 solutions. Okay? Solutions to a quadratic equation are the blank for that parabola. Again, graphically, what do the solutions represent? They represent the x-intercepts. Okay, if there's 2 solutions, again, here's a parabola. Those are x-intercepts right there, crossing the x-axis. When the discriminant is 0, so when D is literally 0, how many solutions are there? 1 solution. If the quadratic has only 1 solution, its blank is on the x-axis. So this one's tricky, okay? If it only has 1 solution, it's going to look like this, right? We know that's an x-intercept, okay? But that's not what they're looking for. What is this called of our parabola? It's called a vertex, okay? So it's the vertex. If it touches the graph 1 time on the x-axis, that is always going to be the vertex. You could draw it this way. That's a vertex, okay? If you forgot, a vertex is the change in direction. So right now, if you look at it, it's going down, and then boom, right here is when it changes and goes up. Over here, it goes up, and then right here is when it goes down. So it's change in direction. When the discriminant is negative, so when d is less than 0, there are/is blank for the quadratic equation. There are no solutions. If your discriminant is a negative answer, there are no answers. You don't have to do the quadratic formula. You're done. There's no answers. Your answer is to write no solutions. Okay? That is your answer. With a negative discriminant, the parabola never touches the x-axis. True or false? Okay, so if it's a negative discriminant, it means there's no solutions. So if you forgot, we did draw a picture. No solutions. Is this touching the x-axis? No, it is not. Okay, so that is true. It never touches. And then the last question here, it says, when completing the square, the first step is moving the middle term to the opposite side. So the middle term, if you guys forgot, the middle term is b. Do we first move bx over? No, we don't. We move c over, okay? C is the term that gets moved, not b. So that's false. All right, so that wraps up the review packet. Miss Cass was teaching you guys today, so hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully it helps you to prepare for your tests. Good luck to everybody, all the Algebra 1 students, and I hope it really goes well, okay? All right, bye guys.